Hey everyone, it's Rob with Four Songs coming at you with a new episode. A little late, but what else is new? I've got some good stuff coming down the pipe though, so as I said, the best way to not miss anything is to subscribe. However you're listening to this podcast, hit that subscribe button. And or follow me on Twitter at Four Songs 2, that's at Four Songs number 2, and that way you won't miss anything. So I was really excited about bringing on my next guest, singer-songwriter and in-demand harmony vocalist / utility player Nora O'Connor. By admission, the Chicago-based musician is much more comfortable in the background, singing harmony with such Americana / singer-songwriter luminaries like Neko Case, bands like the Decembrists, the New Pornographers, singers like Robbie Fulks, and even Jeff Tweedy from Wilco. Now, if you like so-called Americana music, or whatever they're calling that kind of music these days, chances are you've heard Nora on some of your favorite albums. She's toured the world touring some of those well-known Americana acts, and in fact, when we spoke in early September, she was in Jersey City in the midst of touring as a member of Neko Case's band. So yeah, Nora knows her way around a song. But while she's played just about every role in a band, one thing she hasn't done much of is write and record her own material, which is a shame, frankly, because her latest solo album, My Heart, her first in nearly 20 years, is as compelling and as enthralling as anything recorded by her peers. My Heart is her first record since 2004's Till the Dawn, which was just this picture-perfect country pop Americana 9-song masterpiece. Every song was just fantastic. It was the kind of album that made you want more and more and more. Her soothing voice is reminiscent of some of the greats, people like Linda Ronstadt, Stevie Nicks, Emmylou Harris. The thing is, Nora's okay being in the background. She knows she's not the most prolific writer, but as you'll no doubt hear when you listen to My Heart, it's not always the most prolific writers who write the best songs. In many cases, it's the most patient. We talk about 4 songs from My Heart: Sore, Cambridge, Cold, It's Alright, which is the only cover on the album, and Fare Thee Well. Nora is frank, disarming, and refreshingly upfront about her music and her career. And certainly if you like Neko Case or Robbie Fulks, and you should, and some other bands that I mentioned at the outset, you're going to find a lot to like on My Heart. But if you dig a little deeper, if you listen to this album a few times, you're going to find a lot more you're going to hear too. You're going to find influences like Brian Wilson, some piano that maybe you didn't quite expect. You might hear the Wurlitzer or the vibes that may remind you of a Queen song. So yeah, there's a lot going on this album. It's fantastic. It's a great listen. I just really enjoyed this conversation with Nora, and I'm just thrilled to welcome her to 4 Songs. Hi, Nora. Thank you for joining me for 4 Songs. It's great to see you.
You too. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So first question. So I started this back in May of 2020 now, and we're kind of sort of out of this pandemic, perhaps. But at this point, though, I guess my first question is, how are you? How has the last couple of years been for you and your family? And
It's been a handful of everything, really, but I'm doing well now. I'm on the road. I'm playing bass in Neko Case's band, and we're on tour right now. And, it's going well. Everything is a little bit harder,
yeah.
As we're still kind of in the pandemic in a way. And, we're still just we're just trying to stay out here, because if someone gets COVID, the whole thing falls apart, and so we're just being really careful and taking care of each other. So, there's a really great sense of that, really great sense of, like, in my family, my friends, and like my bandmates, I just feel like everyone's really grateful, and we take nothing for granted at this point. So there's a lot of gratitude. I'm surrounded by a lot of gratitude right now.
Good. And so I'm certain you probably have different rules in place while you're on tour. I mean, are you able to mingle at all, or is it just get a show and get back out?
Not really. We don't do like after show like we used to have, like a room full of friends and family backstage after a show. We're not doing that anymore. If there's people I want to see, and there are, I suggest we'd like them to take a COVID test before we get together if it's negative, and then also just kind of remain masked around people that aren't in our little group. So we're all just taking extra precaution.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we're at the point now in the pandemic, though, I think we're seeing new music being written and recorded and released now, which I understand was the case for your new album, My Heart. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So how did the last couple of years
affect you in terms of your music? And obviously you were able to put an album out together, but it just seems like from different people, I hear different things about how this, at least at first, it was really hard just not living a normal life, being inside all day, to, I guess, slowly, gradually coming back out there. But I'm just curious from your perspective, how it affected you and how you in your writing.
So I feel like I had a really unique experience. Yeah, the whole, obviously, like everybody else, the calendar just completely fell apart once we knew, we were on lockdown. But by the summer of 2020, we still like weren't seeing family, weren't going anywhere, nothing, nowhere. But I started to play in people's backyards. I started to do these yard shows where, I would show up, I would be, 40 feet away or 30 feet away from people. And it would just be like 20 people, just everyone spread out and masked. And we would only meet, for like 2 hours. And it was this really sacred thing because there was absolutely nothing else happening, And then I started late summer of 2020 doing these concerts in people's backyards. And it was really special. And it was then, I had been writing some songs before that. So I started to, play a couple new songs. And then I just realized like I just really enjoyed playing solo acoustic shows and knew I wanted to do more and knew that I would need a record and some new material to do this, because I do sing. I mean, I interpret songs. Like I do play a lot of songs that are written by friends, or just I try to dig deep for different songs it's like turning people on to new music, like playing. I try to be clever with my covers. So I just started writing, and then I liked what was coming out. I haven't put a record out in 17 years because I've just been in other people's bands this whole time. And I just liked what was happening, and I wanted to have that experience, that journey of, of producing a record, of, making all the decisions and just seeing what did I have to offer myself and anybody else that may like it.
That's interesting because we were talking about My Heart, which is the new album, and it's coming out in October. And I do want to mention, I loved Till the Dawn. I can't believe
thank you so much. Thanks.
17 years ago. Wow.
I know, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, well, it's because I remember when I came across it, because I guess it was 2003, 2004-ish. And I was still writing for an online magazine back then. And that was sort of, the industry hadn't really come to terms with the internet yet. And we still had a long way to go, I think, before we got there. But that album I remember I think I reviewed it. I don't remember, but it was so good. I just loved like everything from beginning to end. And it's obviously been a while since that came out. So in terms of how things have, your writing style and your interest and your influences, how much has that changed over the last that many years?
I can't tell that it's changed at all. I feel like this, for better or worse, this might be the record that came out 15 years ago, or 10 years ago. Like it just feels kind of just uniquely me, I guess. Like I've always been a little intimidated by the people that I work for. I'm touring with the Decembrists, the New Pornographers, Neko Case, Iron and Wine. It's just like these masters, and they're all amazing. And I wanted to take a break from, comparing myself to other people and just be myself. And that's really a hard question to answer. I couldn't, it feels like this is just the next thing I had, because I haven't really been writing at all. I've just been working and raising children and, taking tours every couple of years and, learning new instruments and playing bass. So it's been a while since I put pen to paper, and this is just what was in there for now.
Well, you mentioned a lot of the folks you've been playing with in Neko Case, and they've also done some work with Robbie Fulks, and even
I love Robbie.
Yeah. Even that, I know you did some work on that Jeff Tweedy, the Mavis Staples record too. What lessons do you think you may have learned from working with someone like Neko, or just being around those people who just seem to write songs as easily as they breathe?
Right. I feel like I just feel like I am just a good person to have around. Like I know how to, stand over back here and play auxiliary instruments and sing harmony. I feel like I'm a good like administrative assistant to the lead singer within the band. So it's just really interesting. We're all at different levels. So, I go from carrying all my shit to a gig, PA, guitar, mics, mic stands, cables, doing my own sound, to like never having to turn on an amp and people hand me guitars, And so I feel like it's just learning to, adjust depending on the situation that I'm in. And I'm friends with these people. I admire them so much. Neko is just a great person to support, to watch, to be around, to sing with. Robbie Fulks has taught me so much. Like Robbie used to have a residency at the Hideout for years and years and years. He'd play every Monday and he'd do something different every Monday. And I did a lot of gigs with him during those years. And I just really had to practice my guitar playing just to be able to play rhythm guitar for someone like that. I was just, my brain grew bigger every time I had to play with him, because I had to, just work really hard to keep up with him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I was kind of curious when, because you said you just, during the pandemic, you had, I guess, an opportunity, but I guess was forced on all of us to kind of stop being on the road. And then you started writing a little bit. For you, did the songs just kind of come out of you? Do you think you may have had some before this all started, but did it just start coming out and you realize, hey, I've got an album on my hands? Did that occur that way? Or?
A couple of them did kind of come out like that, but I also, speaking of Robbie, he did an online songwriting class over COVID that I took. I took his songwriting class. And then I kind of referred to some of my writing books. So I had to kind of reintroduce the discipline of writing and just kind of being open to scenarios and situations or conversations or like sayings or memes, or just kind of, there's just a certain openness that you start to have when you're writing. There's just like something kind of opens up, and I was able to access that best I could anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we'll talk about My Heart, which is coming out, as I said, in October. And there's 4 songs that I wanted to focus on in particular: Soar, Cambridge Cold, All Right Now, and Fare Thee Well. And we were talking about a little bit how this started coming together for you. Also curious about some of the influences. There's a lot of music influences going on, I think, in this. You have the country folk rock stuff, but I even hear like some Brian Wilson. There's a big 70s vibe, I hear. I'm just curious, from your perspective as the artist, did that jump out at you as well? Or did that?
70s soft rock is kind of, I'm made up of like water, 70s soft rock, and like Pringles. Like that's my makeup. I mean, that's in my DNA. Like that stuff is where I live there. I that's my favorite kind of music. So I just can't help but sound like that, or be influenced by that in a major way.
Starting with the song like Soar, which is the album opener. And one thing I'm always interested in, like when you talk about a song like that starts an album, like when you write that, do you feel like, okay, here's the opener? It just sounds like an opening song, or how did that come to you?
It felt like a track one to me. And it was a really fun song. That is one of those songs that kind of came together quick. I was just playing around with, it kind of has a cool chord progression on the chorus, like D to A to C, which kind of is kind of a little bit unexpected after the kind of easy 1 or 2 chords in the verses. But that one came really quick.
set you straight and I drank too much and ended up in a field behind the courthouse. You ran around with your pants down. It was the last time we laughed that hard. Ooh, it's always something. Hey, ooh, my broken heart is sore.
It was after I wrote Soar. I had a couple songs already that are on the record that I was doing at my little yard shows. But then I wrote Soar, and I've got, a cold, stinky, unfinished basement that I grabbed all the nice rugs from the house. I put them in the basement and I set up a little recording studio. So just on my, garage band, I recorded Soar really fast. I did vocals and guitar and bass and drums, and I did a solo, and I've got a demo of that I really like, and I sent to a couple friends, and I'm like, how is this okay? Like, is this really, it's like, I can't even tell if it is anything. Like, it's so hard to be objective about your own music. And I sent it to one of my my friend Liam Davis that I've worked really close with over the years. And I was like, am I onto something? Is this a cool song? He's like, yeah, do it. I love it. He's like, it's very Nora. I was like, okay, I'm going to make a very Nora record then. I'm going to not even pretend I'm anything else but who I am.
And then we started going faster. I almost fell out of the car. We never really got that far. Couldn't look you in the eye. I couldn't bear to let my guard down. Worked for a little while until that night I let it down for you. Ooh, it's always something. Hey, ooh, my broken heart is sore. Don't wanna feel it.
Yeah, and then I was kind of with that song, just the production wise, I wasn't trying to mimic, but I kind of thought about like that Freddie Johnson record. What's it called? This Perfect World, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple songs on that. Like I love the just the Telecaster throughout that one of the songs on his record, and that inspired me to have Scott Legan come in and do the voicings of guitar that he decided to do that are awesome. So
Yeah, I was gonna ask who's playing with you on this one?
so on Soar, it's me on acoustic guitars. My friend Casey McDonough plays bass on the whole record, and if anything, the bass on this record is amazing. And then Alex Hall plays drums. And I also recorded the record at Alex Hall's studio, Reliable Recorders in Chicago, and he co-produced. He and I worked together on this record. So he plays drums on this song, and Scott Legan on the guitar.
Yeah, because I mean, this, like I said, it just hits you from the start with the snare drum, and then just right into the progression. And I mean, it seems lyrically, it seems to be about some kind of relationship that kind of had to end, but while it was going on, it seemed like it had its ups and downs, but it was.
Yeah, it's just like a silly little story, just like thinking about, when the couple was free and silly and running around parking lots with their pants down, and, it's just a little kind of made up little relationship story, I guess.
Tell you really mean it. You will forever wish me well.
The next one I want to talk about was Cambridge Cold. And I kind of feel like this is the most reminiscent of Till the Dawn, and
It
just
is.
in terms of, yeah.
It's like My Backyard 2.0. Yeah.
But here I do hear a little Linda Ronstadt in her voice, like this song, and then in a couple other ones. Again, this seems about like a slice in time. I don't know, is this a personal song or just?
It's not. And it kind of goes back to when I was talking about just kind of like being open and listening for things. And I wrote that I did a lot of walking during the COVID, and you run into people on the streets, and I ran into a couple friends, and this woman was talking about, she introduced me to her friend who had just moved back from Cambridge. She had moved to Cambridge for a year, and she just moved back. And I've lived in the Chicago area my whole life. I've never, ever moved away. So it was just kind of a little pretend story about, moving away from here.
Cambridge Cold, you saw me there. What was it called? Inman Square. And the bronze was everywhere. We pretended we lived there. We never
I thought about Cambridge, and there's a place out there called the Middle East, and you play upstairs or you play downstairs, and when you play downstairs you're like, oh, I've made it. And I used to play the Middle East downstairs when I was in a band called the Blacks in the late 90s, and when I was in Andrew Bird's Bowl of Fire, we played there. So it was just kind of reminiscent of that, or just a little fantasy about moving away to another city and just finding your way back home.
Then one time we got to play upstairs. Well, to us that meant the big time. We were going somewhere. There were dancers everywhere, and little kids laughing at that guy over there. He hustles for a smile to pay his share. He pays all our share.
Yeah, I think it's relatable for a lot of people who done that. Because I'm like you, I haven't really ventured too far from where I live, but you always.
Where are you?
I'm just outside of Washington and
Okay.
outside of Alexandria. About 20 minutes from the Birchmere. If you played, I'm sure you played.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, and Iota Club. I mean, you probably played that. That's
Oh, the
long-
Iota.
long-
Yeah, I used to play
Yeah.
the Iota all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's long gone.
Oh, it's too bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
we
was
used to stay at the
great.
owner's house or the manager's house.
Yeah, that was a great place.
Yeah. Oh, that's sad to hear it's gone. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, that was a pre-COVID casualty, so that wasn't anything
Oh,
led to that. But that was just whoever owned it wanted to build condos, which is the
okay.
where we go these days. Well, the song I want to talk about next is All Right Now, and this is one that really jumped out at me because it's really different from I think the rest of the album, and just it has the Wurlitzer, and I think right and
Yeah. So this, I didn't write this song. This was written by Margot Gurrian back in the 60s. It's a song that I didn't think I was going to do any covers on this song, but I discovered her music a couple years ago and kind of dove in. And this song, I really wanted to interpret and do something a little bit differently than the rest of the album. Like my vocals are malted, and it's kind of got like kind of a spooky atmosphere. And that's Alex Hall on Wurlitzer's.
It's all right now. We talk the whole thing over. We understand each other
we recorded that one. Alex on Wurlitzer, my friend Casey McDonough on bass, and me singing vocals. So we recorded that live, and then we put down a guitar track. And on the original version, there's these beautiful string section that I was gonna maybe try to do mellotron, but Alex Hall has a set of vibes in his studio, so he's playing the vibes on it, and I just think it has a really cool vibe.
Yeah. It has like a dreamy lullaby feel
Yeah,
in a way.
it's a
Yeah.
little creepy, like just the
Yeah.
lyrics. Like I love a good breakup song, and it seems like a kind of an unconventional breakup song. So I felt like I wanted to add that to the record.
Be okay tomorrow when love is gone. No one seems to love forever. Why should ours go on and on and
Yeah, because I like how it's sort of like an acceptance of what's going on, and at
Mhm.
the same time, it almost like the singer, you almost feel like they need to tell it to themselves as much as they're telling to the other person in a
Mhm.
way. And I like how you sing it too, because it does have this. It's a little lighter, I think.
Yeah, it's different for me, and I just wanted to see if I can pull it off, really.
Yeah.
right now. It's time that we were leaving. I've other things to think of, and you shouldn't see me crying anyhow. And anyhow, it's all right now.
We'll wrap things up, and we appreciate your time this morning. I know that you're on the road right now, so we'll talk about Fare Thee Well, which again, it's a pretty straightforward, kind of a tune that to wrap things up, but it does, again, it feels like a closer to me. Maybe the title, but
Yeah.
was this about anyone in particular? Because it feels like this is kind of a personal song in a way.
I feel like I kind of pull from personal experience, but nothing is literal. Like I'd have to think about it. But I was when I wrote that song, there's a Doug Somm song called Stone Faces Don't Lie, and it kind of has it's a completely different vibe, but just the way the guitar opens the song, I just kind of started doing that, and I had been listening to Donny Hathaway and Roberta Flack's album, and the song Where Is the Love on there, and I referenced that song on my song. Yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know what I was thinking about. Just like, I thought we were onto something, I thought we had something going here, but I can tell that it's just like when you can kind of tell someone's not into you or not into it anymore. That's the story.
Fare thee well, do you really have to go? When you said that I can sing the phone book, that it meant you'd stay. Now it seems something's coming over you. I'll make a deal and set up in the other room, giving you some space.
But that was a really fun one to do. We got Hammond organ on there, and just some guitars. That one took us a while. We had a bunch of different mixes of that, and for some reason, and we finally landed on the mix that ended up on the record, and we were happy with that.
I mean, I think the line that lyrically that I like the best is toward the end when you talk about being onto something and it turns out it's nothing, and you're holding on for what. And yeah, again, that's relatable, I think, in a lot of ways, because we've all, I think, we've been in those kinds of relationships. And
Yeah.
but it seems like the singer is not ready to give up, because there's that the come on at the end, like we can get through this.
Right. Yeah. She's trying to like, what if I did this? What if I like gave you your own room and I would, if I gave you space and I went over here, or what if we tried this? Like, what can I do to keep you here? And so who knows what happened to those two?
There's no more harboring beyond the shore. Won't mess it up now. Toss me an anchor, I can give you more. Darling, I thought we were on to something. Turns out it's nothing. I'm holding on for what? Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. We'll build a boat now.
So when you were recording this, one of the things that, talking to others who've done new albums during the pandemic, I mean, were you able to be together in the studio, or was it pretty difficult at times?
We were. Yeah, we were. We kind of, I mean, we were all just really careful. I think by the time I got in the studio, we had a vax or two, and it was, just that like honeymoon period where no one was getting COVID right after we got vaccinated. And I did a lot during those times. Yeah, so I did a lot of basic tracks. I recorded some songs at Steve, do you know Steve Dawson from Bonsai Funeral Wedding and Dolly Varden? I did a couple songs at his studio. I did most of it at Alex Hall's studio, but I would do basic tracks, and then I did a lot of the vocals at my house on my own. And there was a few songs where I sent, like Cambridge Cold, I sent tracks to my friend Robbie Gerso and John Rawhouse, who is pedal steel and guitar player in Neko Case's band. He lives in Phoenix. I sent him. So there was a couple where we sent the songs away, like we put a guitar track on, it got sent back, but mostly we did everything at Alex's, and then a couple of songs at Steve's. I feel like we did it kind of over a long period of time, but also pretty quickly. It probably was, at the end of the day, probably 10 or 12 days in the studio.
Oh, wow. So when the album comes out in October, I know you're on the road now. Are you going to do your own touring behind?
I'm going to do some local shows, some regional shows around Chicago. And in the spring, I'm going to try to do, like a living room tour, and I'll try to come out to the East Coast. I mean, I don't have a booking agent, and booking your own tours is just the pits. It's the worst. And I'm not looking forward to that part. But I am going to try to do a little bit, to at least try to come out East and do some like combo small club and house shows. But I'm not sure about that yet. I hope so. I'm really not in a position that I can leave my family and go on the road and come home, negative. It's just not really an option anymore. But I'm hoping with this record, I can come in and do some shows out East.
Yeah, love to. If you're going to come to the DC area, I'd love to.
I'll let you know.
Catch up with you. Yeah. So before we wrap up, where can folks get the album, and where can they find out more about you? So
I'm on the label Pravda Records, pravdamusic.com, or you can go to my website, Nora O'Connor music.com. And it'll be available everywhere. Spotify, iTunes, Bandcamp is a great place to buy music. And I'm not doing vinyl this time around, so downloads and CDs will be available through those websites, Pravda Music and NoraO'ConnorMusic.com.
Okay. So how much longer are you on the road with Neko right now?
I think we have about 13 more days.
Oh, wow.
So it's a 3.5 week tour. So we have a day off here in Jersey City, and then we play Jersey City tomorrow night and on from there. So yeah, I'm excited to have a day off.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for spending part of it with me. And
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And my thanks again to Nora O'Connor for joining me. Go to her website, noraoconnormusic.com. You can check her out on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, however you get your music. I'll make a plug for it again. You can't beat the sound of a CD coming out of your own stereo. It beats the hell out of streaming. So please do yourself a favor and get the CD if you can, because you'll be so much better off for it. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thanks for Nora for joining me, and stay tuned because I got more stuff coming.